Days Gone, baby. This is a man's game. Man, these fucking woke journalists, these woke media members, they don't want you playing this game because it'll cause you to be a free thinker. Let me show you how free thinking and anti-woke this game is. Okay, so first off, it is a zombie game. This is a very innovative choice here by the game developers. Zombie games, we just don't see them anymore. There's just no zombie games that come out. Alright, and it gets even better. Think about this, right? It's a zombie game in an open world setting in post-apocalyptic America where you play as a white man. And this white man in particular, he stares at his date's ass. You know what's crazy? The director said this. I don't even remember that happening in the game. So obviously, all jokes aside, this game, I don't know why the director went out and said these things. Because honestly, I played it and I was like, this is nothing new. I played this game before multiple times. Honestly, the most innovative thing it has going for it is you can ride a fucking bike in a zombie game. But man, the bike is so fucking fun to ride in this game. You're just zooming around in this beautiful open world that has been created at the Pacific Northwest. You know, you playing at Oregon and shit. I didn't know Oregon looked like this. I might have to actually go there. And honestly, that's what blew me away the most was how beautiful this open world looked in terms of landscapes. The attention to detail really surprised me too in some of the settlements. I think in terms of landscape graphics, this is like tied with Red Dead Redemption 2. I think I'll give the props to Red Dead, but this game is hella close. So in the game he plays Deacon St. John, voiced by one of the GOAT voice actors, Sam Witwer. And he's a white guy who likes to stare at his date's ass, apparently. So you play as a normal white man in post-apocalyptic America, except he is a biker. And he claims, bro, they pull a Black Adam here. Now, I haven't seen the new Black Adam movie, but I heard this from another source, that the whole movie he's like, I'm not a good guy, and all he does is good things. But he kept saying that he's not a good guy. That is essentially the protagonist of this game. Like, the whole time he's like, I'm just not that kind of guy, you know? I'm not a good person. And the whole game, you're just helping people. And the people you're killing are either infected zombies or literal psychopaths. But even with this, I still think he's the best character in the game, mainly due to Sam Witwer's incredible performance. But I think he's actually kind of an interesting guy. I think he goes through an interesting character arc. But really, besides this good main lead, the story just didn't really do it for me. I mean, it's good, it's fine, but it's nothing like groundbreaking. The story just throws you into a flashback immediately in such a weird way. And then it'll play that flashback to you later in the game after a certain revelation or a certain moment that's important for the character. And it plays the exact same cutscene again. And I'm like, why didn't you just show me this cutscene now as a flashback instead of just throwing it in the beginning as the game starts? And honestly, for the first third of the game, in terms of like actual like plot progression, there's not a whole lot going on. It's more just the character trying to figure out what they want to do. And he's trying to help out his other side character buddy. And for pretty much just trying to figure out what the hell to do for the rest of the game. And when they do, when the story actually picks up, I think it's a good moment. They try to pull like a Red Dead where like you're riding the bike and some music is playing and shit. And I'm like, this would work if I actually cared. I also thought that the main mission structure in general in this first third of the game was pretty formulaic. Like they were all pretty similar. It all kind of blends into my mind. But then after this first third of the game, I actually really started to like it. Like the story really picks up. You actually feel like you're doing something important. And it gets more interesting, especially on like the enemy faction villain side. And it'll hit like a really high midpoint where I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. The enemy faction gets interesting. The enemy leader gets really interesting. And then they're really underused. And then it switches topics completely for like the last third of the game, which I was kind of fine with because the last third of the story is good. I think the enemy faction in that third is pretty interesting. It had a good villain. But like the most interesting thing the game had going for it in terms of the world and the story is criminally underused. And it hits a peak at like the climax of that section. And then I was kind of disappointed with the resolution of that enemy. I think the main takeaway from the story, it's good, it's serviceable. It kept me somewhat engaged during certain parts. It's just most of the side characters are pretty forgettable. It's really cliche. Who you think is gonna die is exactly who's gonna die. And I think in terms of like a zombie story, I think they just play it kind of safe. Like it's just so formulaic. It's so cliche. I think it's still well written. There's some good parts. But overall, I think it was one of the weaker points of the game. But by far the weakest point of the game is just how uninteresting the zombies are in a zombie game. I have to give them credit. The horde mechanics in this game, the horde AI is actually extremely impressive. And it makes up for a lot of the just lackluster zombie design. For 90% of the game, you're just going to be fighting the normal cannon fodder zombie. And then sometimes they'll throw a big zombie at you. There's one that screams, and then there's one that runs really fast. They're also like these bird zombies, that's probably the most interesting, but they just look like normal birds. Actually, I almost forgot, there is one pretty interesting zombie. They're called newts, but they're zombie kids, and they kind of hide from you when you're in their territory, but if you get low, they'll try to attack you. And honestly, fuck them kids, they're so fun to kill. You just fucking hit them with any melee weapon and they go flying. You feel like a goddamn baseball player. You feel like Barry Bonds in a home run. And they're actually not called zombies in this game. Get this, they call them freakers. Like what in the 5th grade vocabulary, bro? and it just wasn't that interesting to learn about what made the zombies, how they work. They kind of start, like, they sprinkle some stuff, and you're like, oh, that could be interesting, and then they just don't go anywhere with it. So right now you're probably thinking, damn, this guy fucking hates this game. He thinks it sucks. Thinks it's overrated. But I don't think that, because I played this game in, like, 8-hour marathons, where I was just addicted to the gameplay loop. Now, the gameplay loop isn't anything new. The melee combat, you can press R1 to roll. You press one button to use a melee attack, except it's not as good as The Last of Us one-button combat, because you don't feel the impact as much. The gunplay stays about the same throughout the entire experience. It's kind of this heavier system. Guns have a lot of recoil, but it's heavy in like a good way because it makes the game a little bit more difficult and it makes you acquire more skill. So none of this gameplay really changes throughout the experience. And yet I loved it. I thought it was like so addictive for like 30 hours. And I think that comes from there's a lot of different variability, a lot of different options to choose from, and how to approach different battles, different loadouts. And I think that it's also because the gunplay especially kind of starts out difficult in the beginning. You don't have good guns, you're not used to aiming, so you're really shitty. But if you stick with it, especially in the beginning, it can be kind of rough. You'll get better and better and better, and the game rewards you. You get better weapons, you feel better. You can take on more and more and more enemies. And as the game kind of ramps up some difficulty, not through imaginary RPG numbers, through either more zombies, different types of zombies, you feel prepared and you feel ready. I will say though, on normal difficulty, which is what I played on, the game's a little too easy. You'll have so many supplies available to you, you can craft literally anything in the game for like the whole time. You'll pretty much never run out of bullets. But obviously that's an easy fix because you just change the difficulty setting if you want a challenge. And I have to say, customizing your loadout in this game, choosing what playstyle you like, which weapons you like, what gadgets you like to use. I call them gadgets, it's just like pipe bombs and molotovs and shit. It was really satisfying for me because I just had so many options. Speaking of options, there is the stealth gameplay option. I don't personally recommend it. I didn't think it was as fun. It's so basic and so simple. You just crouch, you hide in bushes, you stab people in the back, you use rocks to distract enemies. Like I said before in this video, a lot of this game, all of this game, is tried and tested in different games. And to hear it's polished to a really good degree, it's just if you're looking for something new and fresh, this might not be the game for you. Me personally, I didn't mind it for the first like 30 hours, 35 hours. But the game did start to kind of overstay its welcome gameplay-wise and story-wise once I hit like that, like 2 to 3 hours left mark. But the open world never outstayed its welcome to me. I loved riding the bike around and exploring just the different landscapes, learning different landmarks, because this map is not big, but is the perfect size for this bike. It's obviously big enough where you'll need it to traverse the entire thing, but small enough to where you'll start to remember landmarks, you'll start to remember routes to different locations, and it all starts to feel familiar in a good way. And goddamn, the bike is the best part of this game. Driving it, listening to that great ambient soundtrack is just so satisfying. And it just has a great vibe to it, I think, exploration in this game. It really captures that kind of lone wanderer, lone ranger kind of vibe. Kind of like a Mad Maxy vibe, I would suppose. And a lot of the side activities are pretty fun. They actually matter. If you take out ambush camps, you won't be hit by snipers on the road. If you take out infestation zones, those areas will now be clear and it's a lot easier to drive your bike through there. And I really appreciate that this game sets out to make sure that the side content actually kind of matters and affects the world. Now the side missions, they don't really affect the world. They're paced throughout the story really well. They don't just throw them all at you at once. You'll do a couple main missions, you might get a call from a camp leader. Come do this side mission. So you go do it because, you know, you just did a bunch of exciting shit. Time to keep it a little low-key. And it's a really good choice that they did that because the side missions are all the same. You either go somewhere to find somebody or you'll go to an enemy camp and they say kill them all. And while yes, it's obvious that these are the same mission types, just different location, I didn't mind it nearly as much because they were paced so well throughout the main plot. Now back to the open world, I really like the weather systems in this game. It really helps with immersion. For example, this one region, it'll snow one day and it'll be a downfall, going crazy. And then the next day, the snow will stay on the ground, and then the day after, the snow will be gone. I don't know what it is about that shit, but that shit get my gamer senses tingling. I'm like, damn, this is a good ass game. And the day-night cycle actually matters in this game because the zombies, the hordes come out at night. So you can go into their little hidey holes and get whatever loot is in there at night, but then during the day, they won't be out. So it made you actually think about like when is the best time to approach certain scenarios, certain areas. So yeah, I think that's Days Gone. That's about all the main points I have to say about it. There's obviously shit I miss. There's always shit I miss. But at the end of the day, it was fun, and that's the main thing that matters. And it also reminded me of the good old days when Ubisoft wasn't complete shit. I will say, however, the gameplay, this type of game needs to really innovate, it needs to evolve, and it really showed here because everything is polished to a T. All these old systems have been tried and true. We need a bit of a shape up. Breath of the Wild isn't enough. That's like a completely different type of open world game anyway. So I will say one final statement. I'm glad this game is not getting a sequel because I want to see Sony Bend do something different, more unique, because I think they're capable of greatness. This game shows that they are a good company. They can make great games. And I'm glad that they're not restricting themselves to making a sequel in this, just to be honest, I said it once, I'll say it again, boring ass universe that they created. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm too woke to understand. Maybe I'm the very thing that's wrong with games media. Maybe I'm what's wrong with Days Gone. But hold on, if Days Gone is supposed to be anti-woke, supposed to go against the woke agenda, then how come there are 2 lesbian characters in this game? Explain that to me. I forgot the dude's name. Director of Days Gone, that's his new legal name. Stop using it as a cop-out excuse for why you released this game in a buggy state. And don't use it as an excuse to why people didn't like a game that honestly didn't do anything new. Does it deserve all the hate it gets? Hell no. This is a good game, but it's just that it's a good game. It's not a masterpiece. It's not a great game. It's a B-tier video game. Wait, hold on. I just got a notification. Kanye West just said his favorite game is Days Gone? What the